I was 30 years old and engaged to a man who on paper was a perfect 10, handsome, funny, a great job, and he owned his own home. He was the complete package, or so I thought. But behind the charming facade was a fatal flaw that he managed to hide perfectly. He was a cheating slimeball. After I found undeniable proof of his repeated affairs, I planned to just quietly move out while he was away on a week-long business trip. There would be no screaming match, no dramatic confrontation. Just a clean, silent break. But before I tell you what my protective older brother suggested we do instead, and how his suggestion turned my quiet exit into a week-long psychological operation designed to exploit my ex's deepest, most secret phobia, drop a comment if you believe that sometimes the most effective revenge isn't loud, but deeply, deeply personal. And hit that like button if you think cheaters deserve to be creatively reminded of their transgressions. This story is for you. Our life together looked perfect from the outside. We were the couple everyone envied. We hosted dinner parties, went on weekend trips, and were in the midst of planning a wedding. He was the charming, outgoing fiancé, and I was the happy, supportive partner. We lived in his beautiful home, a space I had helped decorate, a space I thought we were building our future in. It was a comfortable, aspirational life, the kind you see in magazines, built on what I thought was a solid foundation of trust and mutual respect. But everyone has a weakness. His wasn't just infidelity, it was something deeper, something childish and visceral. My handsome, confident, grown-man fiancé had an all-consuming, paralyzing fear of clowns. This wasn't a mild dislike, it was a genuine freak out and leave the room phobia that he was deeply ashamed of. It was his secret kryptonite. And my brother, who owns a print shop and is fiercely protective of his little sister, saw that secret not as a weakness but as a weapon he was more than happy to help me build an entire arsenal from. When I met Evan, it felt like the final piece of my life's puzzle clicking into place. He was everything I thought I wanted. On our first date, he made me laugh so hard I cried, and he had this incredible ability to make you feel like the most fascinating person in the world. He was ambitious and successful in his career, but he also seemed grounded. He remembered small details like my favorite kind of wine or the name of my childhood pet. We fell in love quickly and easily. Within a year we were engaged, and I had moved into the beautiful colonial-style house he owned. I spent months making it our home, choosing paint colors, planting a garden, arranging furniture. I was nesting, building a life with a man I was convinced was my soulmate. The love felt real, the future felt bright, and I was completely blissfully happy. Looking back, the perfection itself should have been a warning sign. Evan's charm was a little too polished, his stories a little too perfect. He had an answer for everything, and he was an expert at making people feel at ease. It was a skill that served him well in his job, but I now realize it was also the primary tool in his arsenal of deceit. He presented a flawless exterior to the world, and I was a key part of that presentation, the stable, successful, attractive fiancé. I was a prop in the perfect life he was performing for everyone else. He didn't want a partner, he wanted an accessory, one that would complete the picture of him as a man who had it all. The real Evan, the one who existed when I wasn't around, was a completely different person. The first cracks in the facade were almost invisible. It started with small inconsistencies. Late night at the office. When I knew his company had a firm policy against overtime. The scent of a perfume on his shirt that wasn't mine, which he'd brush off as, someone must have hugged me at a client meeting. Then came the phone habits. He, who had always left his phone lying around, suddenly started guarding it like it was a state secret. It was always face down on the table, and he would take calls in another room, his voice a low murmur. When I'd ask who it was, the answer was always a vague, just work stuff. He was an expert at making me feel crazy for even asking, turning my suspicion back on me as a lack of trust. The confirmation, when it came, was brutal and undeniable. I had a nagging feeling one night when he was supposedly out with friends. Using a shared tablet that was still logged into his social media, I saw a new message pop up. It was from a woman I didn't know, and the preview was enough to make my blood run cold. It said, "Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again." My heart pounding, I clicked on her profile. It was filled with pictures of her and her friends, and in a few of them I saw Evan. Then I went deeper and I found another woman and another. It wasn't a one-time mistake. It was a pattern. He was living a completely separate life, juggling multiple women while I was at home planning our wedding. The discovery didn't feel like a heartbreak. It felt like an assassination of the reality I thought I lived in. I was completely shattered. I drove to my brother Mark's house in a daze, sobbing as I told him everything. He just listened, his face getting harder and colder with every detail I shared. He didn't offer platitudes or tell me it would be okay. He just let me vent all my pain and rage. I told him my plan. Evan was leaving for a week-long business trip in 2 weeks. I would use that time to pack my things and disappear from his life. I wanted to be a ghost, to just vanish without a messy confrontation. I didn't want to see his face or hear his fake apologies. Mark immediately volunteered to help me move, his protective big brother instincts kicking in. After I had cried myself out, a strange, devious grin spread across Mark's face. "We can just move you out," he said, "or we can also leave a little memento for him." I asked him what he meant. "Pennywise," he said, his grin widening. Pennywise and all of his friends. And that's when the plan was born. I had told Mark in confidence about Evan's debilitating, secret fear of clowns. It was his one true vulnerability, a deep-seated phobia he was deeply ashamed of. Even a picture of a clown in a book could make him physically anxious. My brother, the owner of a professional print shop, saw an opportunity not just for revenge, but for a form of poetic, psychological justice that was too perfect to pass up. The 2 weeks leading up to Evan's business trip were a whirlwind of clandestine preparation. My brother's print shop became our war room. Mark was in his element, a general planning a psychological campaign. He fired up his large-format printers and began churning out dozens and dozens of pictures of clowns. It was a masterclass in the genre. There were happy, classic circus clowns with big red noses. There were sad, melancholic Pierrot clowns with single tears painted on their cheeks. And then there were the others, the nightmare, fuel hellspawn clowns. We had Pennywise from It, in all his terrifying forms. We had Twisty from American Horror Story. We had a litany of obscure, demonic-looking jesters from the darkest corners of the internet. The pictures ranged in size from tiny, wallet-sized images to huge life-sized posters that could cover a wall. We spent evenings in Mark's workshop, turning these prints into weapons. We bought cheap plastic frames from a dollar store for the larger pictures. For the smaller ones, the ones destined for more intimate locations, we laminated them, making them waterproof and durable. Each laminated clown felt like a little landmine we were carefully arming. My sister-in-law even got involved, helping us cut and sort, all of us laughing with a dark, therapeutic glee. It was the most productive and collaborative I had felt in months. My pain was being channeled, transformed from a helpless, grieving energy into a focused, creative, and utterly absurd project of revenge. The day Ivan left for his trip was a masterclass in acting for me. I drove him to the airport, listening to him talk about the important meetings he had scheduled. I smiled, I kissed him goodbye, I wished him luck. It was the most disingenuous performance of my life, but it was flawless. He walked away, completely oblivious, dragging his suitcase toward the terminal. As I watched him disappear into the crowd, I didn't feel sadness. I felt a cold, calm sense of purpose. The curtain had just fallen on the final act of our relationship, and now it was time for the stage crew, me and my brother, to completely change the set for his return. As soon as he was gone, Operation Clownpocalypse began. Mark and my sister-in-law showed up at the house with a moving truck and boxes. We worked with military efficiency, packing up every trace of my existence. My clothes, my books, my personal items. Everything was boxed up and loaded into the truck. It was a strangely liberating process. With every box that left the house, I felt lighter. I was surgically removing myself from this life, this lie, and it felt incredible. Within a few hours, all of my things were gone, leaving behind a clean, empty space. A blank canvas on which we were about to paint a masterpiece of horror. With the house empty of my presence, we began the redecoration. We started with the obvious. Every single framed picture on the walls was taken down. The beautiful landscapes, the abstract art prints, the photos of us smiling together, all of it came down. In their place, we hung our framed clowns. The living room became a gallery of grinning, demonic jesters. The hallway became a procession of circus nightmares. A giant poster of Pennywise now loomed over the master bed. The family photos on the mantelpiece and side tables were all replaced with small, framed pictures of unsettlingly cheerful clowns. The house was transformed from a stylish, comfortable home into a surreal, personalized hell. But the true genius of our plan lay in the details, in the hidden terrors. This is where the laminated clowns came into play. We placed them everywhere. We opened the silverware drawer and taped a small, grinning clown to the bottom, hidden beneath the forks. We lifted the toilet lid in the master bathroom and affixed a horrifying, wide-eyed clown face to the underside of the seat, ready to greet him the first time he went to take a piss. We tucked them into the fridge, behind the milk carton. We taped one to the bottom of his deodorant stick. We slid them into his underwear drawer, between the neatly folded boxers. We put them in his coat pockets, inside his favorite shoes, and taped them to the back of cleaning bottles under the sink. The goal was for him to never feel safe again. The long-term psychological torment was a key part of our strategy. We wanted the fear to linger for months, for him to be finding our little mementos long after I was gone. His house had one of those attic access panels in the hallway ceiling, the kind you have to pull a cord on to make a ladder descend. It was a space he rarely used, maybe once or twice a year to store seasonal decorations. It was perfect. We took one of the largest laminated posters of a particularly gruesome clown face and secured it to the top side of the folding ladder. Months, maybe even a year from now, when he finally went to access the attic, the ladder would unfold and a giant, terrifying clown would be staring down at him. It was a gift that would keep on giving. The digital realm was not safe either. While my brother was arranging the physical clowns, I sat down at his desktop computer. His wallpaper was a serene picture of a mountain landscape. I changed it to a high-resolution, close-up shot of Pennywise, his yellow eyes glowing, a string of drool hanging from his lip. Then I moved on to his prized DVD collection. He had about 100 of his favorite movies neatly arranged on a shelf. I selected 10 of them. Classics, action movies, films he watched repeatedly. My brother had come prepared. He'd brought blank, burnable DVDs. We spent an hour burning a short, looping video of creepy clown footage onto each one. The footage was set to autoplay the moment the DVD was inserted. The most meticulous part was the packaging. Mark, with his print shop expertise, had printed off perfect, high-quality replicas of the original DVD artwork. We carefully slid the original movie posters out of the plastic sleeves on the DVD cases and replaced them with our perfect fakes. Then we swapped the real movie discs with our clown-filled Trojan horses. To anyone looking at the shelf, The Godfather still looked like The Godfather. But the moment he put it in his player, he wouldn't be greeted by Marlon Brando, but by a cacophony of distorted calliope music and a montage of leering clowns. This detail, I felt, was true artistry. We didn't want to be destructive, just psychologically devastating. All of his original artwork, his family photos, and the real movie DVDs were carefully packed and stored in his basement. We made sure they were off the ground and protected from any potential damage. However, we did surround the boxes with several of the largest, most terrifying clown posters we had. And as a final touch, my brother installed a small, battery-powered motion sensor near the boxes. The moment he walked into the basement to retrieve his things, he would trigger the sensor and a loud, creepy, echoing clown laugh would fill the dark, empty space. He would literally have to walk through a gallery of his greatest fear to get his old life back. After 3 days of hard work, moving me out and moving several carloads of terror in, our masterpiece was complete. The final touch was the note. I didn't write a long, emotional letter. I didn't need to. I took a single piece of notepaper and wrote 7 simple words. I know about she. I inserted the names of 2 of the women. Fuck you. I'm out. I left it right in the middle of the kitchen table, the first thing he would see when he walked in. It was short, it was direct, and it offered no room for argument or fake apologies. It was a simple statement of fact, a prologue to the horror show that was now his home. That evening, my brother, his wife, and I celebrated. We went back to my new apartment, a place that was entirely mine, free of lies and secrets. We grilled thick, juicy steaks on my new balcony and drank a few well-deserved beers. The entire celebration was paid for with cash. Earlier that day, I had gone to a jeweler and sold the large, ostentatious diamond engagement ring Evan had given me. The ring that was supposed to symbolize his love and commitment had been nothing but a lie, a prop. It felt incredibly fitting to liquidate that lie and turn it into a celebration of my newfound freedom and a perfectly executed revenge. Once the trap was set and I was safely in my new home, a strange sense of peace settled over me. The days leading up to his return weren't filled with anxiety, but with a quiet, patient anticipation. I had done everything I could do. I had removed myself from the equation and left behind a house perfectly tailored to torment the man who had so casually broken my heart. I had taken my pain and transformed it into a work of art, a prank of epic proportions. I had taken back my power. I wasn't the grieving, cheated on fiancé anymore. I was a ghost who had successfully haunted the house of her betrayer, and now I was just waiting for the phone call to know he'd seen my work. Evan was due back on a Sunday evening. I had expected a call, a barrage of angry texts that night. But there was only silence. Monday passed, still nothing. By Tuesday afternoon, I started to wonder if he'd even gone home. Then my phone buzzed. It was a text from him, 2 simple, furious words. "You bitch!" A slow, satisfied smile spread across my face. He had found it, or at least he had begun to find it. I could only imagine his experience walking into his home, seeing my note, feeling a jolt of panic, and then, slowly, a dawning horror as he looked up and saw the first clown staring back at him from a picture frame. I pictured him moving through the house, his initial anger turning to genuine terror. First, the obvious clowns on the walls. It would have taken him hours just to take those down, his hands probably shaking. But then would come the second wave of horror. The moment he went to the bathroom and lifted the toilet seat, only to be greeted by a leering face. The moment he reached for a fork and found a tiny, grinning jester staring up at him. The moment he opened the fridge for a beer and saw a red-nosed monster peeking from behind the ketchup. Each discovery would be a fresh jolt to his system, a reminder that the house was no longer a safe space. It had been contaminated by his deepest fear. The true beauty of the plan was its longevity. The obvious clowns could be removed in a day or two, albeit a terrifying one. But the hidden ones, the laminated landmines we had placed in the most obscure corners of his life, those would haunt him for months, possibly years. He'd reach for a Christmas ornament in the attic and be met with a giant, unfolding face of doom. He'd decide to finally clean out the junk drawer and find a tiny, smiling clown tucked beneath old receipts. He would never be able to fully trust his environment again. We had installed a permanent sense of unease into his subconscious. Every drawer, every closet, every dark corner now held a potential threat. It was a psychological masterpiece. As I had predicted, there were no further repercussions. There was no legal action, no angry confrontation at my door. After all, what grown man, especially one who prided himself on his macho persona, would go to the police or his friends and complain that his ex-fiancé had scared him with pictures of clowns? The sheer absurdity and childishness of the prank were its greatest defense. To admit what we had done would be to admit his own crippling, embarrassing phobia to the world. He was trapped. He could do nothing but silently suffer in his clown-infested home, a prison of his own making. My revenge was perfect, deeply personal, psychologically devastating, and completely, utterly unprosecutable. They say that living well is the best revenge. And while that's true, sometimes the path to living well begins with a single, decisive act of creative, psychological warfare. When someone systematically betrays your trust and shatters the life you built together, you are not obligated to simply walk away quietly. Sometimes, justice requires you to find the one secret, hidden thing they are most afraid of and wallpaper their world with it. My revenge wasn't just about clowns, it was about translation. I took the ugly, hidden fear he had instilled in me through his betrayal, and I gave it back to him in a language he could truly, viscerally understand. It was a reminder that if you're going to treat someone like a joke, you shouldn't be surprised when they turn your life into a circus.